in the second regular session of the 17th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Paolo Benigno Bam Aquino IV will lead us in prayer.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. This is the prayer of the Ateneo de Manila University Community for Human Rights in 2016. Dear Father in heaven, lead us not into temptation, the temptation to lose heart in this time of darkness and confusion. Deliver us from our lies and deception, from our fears and anger that darken the light of truth. Discipline our ambition, restrain those who abuse power, those who exploit the poor and the weak. Hold back the arm of violence, the terror that walks our streets. In these trying times, we pray for justice and truth, for true peace and unity in our country. Teach us to be vigilant always. Give us the courage to face the dark forces that steal the life and hope from our people. We pray for our leaders and for those to whom we give authority to protect us. Turn them to your light and to your ways. Remind us again of the value and sacredness of human dignity. Teach us again to respect and uphold the rights of every person at all times. And no matter how sinful we are still all your children who are precious in your eyes, who are living temples of your Spirit. Teach us to remember the lessons of our past. Train our children to love and fight for the truth, your truth that makes us free and just to our neighbor. Grant us the grace of patient discernment to become a community that is empowered by a faith that does justice, a community that believes in your love and incarnates that love in mercy and compassion. Our faith leads us to hope in you alone as we fight to let your light shine in the darkness under the banner of the cross of your Son and with the people you have created in your image and likeness out of the depth of your love. We offer this prayer through our Lord Jesus Christ with the help of Mary, our Mother. Amen.
Amen. Secretary, please call the roll.
The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, De Lima, Drilon, Ejercito, Escudero, Gatchalian, Gordon, Honasan, Hontiveros, Lacson, Ligarda, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Po, Recto, Soto, Trillanes, Villanueva, Villar, Suberi, Senate President Pimentel.
With 19 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 43rd session, Monday, January 15, and consider the same as approved.
Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, we'd like to acknowledge some guests in the gallery, visitors and guests of the Senate. Firstly, we'd like to welcome the Governor of Palawan, Governor Pepito Alvarez, and the officials of Palawan. And also we'd like to welcome Mr. Matthias Lenz, Jarge Diafe of the EU delegation, Dr. Andre Bull, the Economic and Commercial Counselor of the German Embassy, and the officials of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Executive Director Joseph Reynante, Director Bindira Banyares, Director Ma Carmela Cabrera, the Principal Assistant Faith Valerie Tan, and also officials from the Social Security System, Attorney Joseph Desunia. I would like to welcome them to the Senate, Mr. President.
Welcome to all of our guests, most especially the Governor of Palawan, who is from Cagayan de Oro City.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Bills on first reading. 1645, an act converting the Land Transportation Office Licensing Center in the city of Batangas, province of Batangas, into a regular licensing center to be known as the LTO Batangas City Licensing Center of Batangas City, Batangas, and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Recto.
Refer to the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
1646, an act providing for the basic law for the Bangsamoro and abolishing the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 9054, entitled An Act to Strengthen and Expand the Organic Act for the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, and Republic Act number 6734, entitled An Act Providing for an Organic Act for the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao and for other purposes. Senator Soberi.
To the Committees on Local Government, Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes, Ways and Means, and Finance.
1647, an act providing policies and prescribing procedures on surveillance and response to notifiable diseases, epidemics, and health-related events, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 3573, entitled An Act Providing for the Prevention and Suppression of Dangerous Communicable Diseases, and for other purposes, and appropriating funds therefore. Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito.
To the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance.
1648, an act amending certain provisions of Republic Act number 9502, otherwise known as the Universally Accessible, Cheaper, and Quality Medicines Act of 2008, and the Republic Act number 6675, otherwise known as the Generics Act of 1988, as amended, and for other purposes. Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito.
To the Committee on Health and Demography.
1649, an act upgrading the Bataan Provincial Hospital in the province of Bataan into a Level 3 teaching and training hospital to be now known as the Bataan General Hospital and Medical Center, and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito.
To the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance.
Resolution. Resolution number 581, resolution directing the Committee on Energy to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the existing inventories of coal and oil and to monitor and evaluate electricity and fuel prices to ensure no premature price increases are being paid by consumers as a result of the new excise tax rates and the Republic Act number 10963, or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Act. Senator Win Gatchalian.
To the Committees on Energy, Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, and Ways and Means.
Committee reports number 221, submitted jointly by the Committees on Local Government and Electoral Reforms and People's Participation on House Bill number 5160, introduced by Representative Collantes, entitled An Act Converting the Municipality of Santo Tomas and the Province of Batangas into a component city to be known as the City of Santo Tomas, recommending its approval with amendments. Senator Sani Angara.
To the calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 222, submitted jointly by the Committees on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development, Foreign Relations, and Finance, on Senate Bill number 192, introduced by Senator Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao, entitled An Act Mandating the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration to publish, disseminate, and update a handbook on the rights and responsibilities of migrant workers, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 8042, otherwise known as the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995 as amended, recommending its approval with amendments. Senators Joel Villanueva and Emmanuel Manny Pacquiao.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, a number of members of the Senate requesting that we go into a caucus with the Senate President, and that will include the members of the minority, Mr. President, to discuss certain urgent issues that might be taken up tomorrow by the House of the Senate, Mr. President. So may I move that we suspend the session and that an all-senator caucus be conducted in the Santos Lounge.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, session suspended.
sabi nila, kung botohan niyo kay Lauren. Sabi nila, magbobotohan siya. Oo, okay. Yun lang. Para hindi kami absent kasi maaga kaming aalis. Walang record. Hindi record.
Anong rule number ano yan?
Walang SSS. 1 year na yung nakapin.
Related to the issue, Mr. President.
Shimani. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move to transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special order, Senate Bill 1620, under Committee Report 171.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Bill 1620 under Committee Report 171.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
May the Secretary read the title of the measure.
An act abolishing the road board and transferring its powers and functions, including the management of the motor vehicles usage charge funds, to the Department of Public Works and Highways and to the Department of Transportation, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 8794, otherwise known as the Motor Vehicles Users Charge.
To sponsor the measure, Mr. President, may we ask the Chair of the Committee on Public Works, Senator Manny Pacquiao, be recognized.
Before I recognize Senator Pacquiao, can I ask our colleagues to please give the good senator our undivided attention. Okay, Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Majority Floor Leader, fellow public servants, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I stand before this August chamber as the chairperson of the Committee on Public Works to recommend the approval of Senate Bill number 1620 under Committee Report 171, an act abolishing the road board and transferring its powers and functions, including the management of the motor vehicles users charge funds, to the Department of Public Works and Highways and to the Department of Transportation, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 8794, otherwise known as the Motor Vehicles Users Charge. On June 27, 2000, Republic Act number 8794, an act imposing a motor vehicle users charge MVUC on owners of all types of motor vehicles and for other purposes, was signed into law. The motor vehicle users charge was set in place to impose burden on those that impose the greatest abrasion of deterioration on our road systems and to impose penalty for overloading, one of the causes of the rapid deterioration of our roads beyond the bearing capacity of some road networks. The MVUC covers all motor vehicles, whether for hire or for private use, including government motor vehicles classified into light, medium, or heavy. The funding was intended for road maintenance and the improvement of road drainage, installation of adequate and efficient traffic lights and road safety devices, and air pollution control. On the other hand, the road board was created to implement the prudent and efficient management and utilization of special funds. As we know, the road board is composed of the DPWH secretary as ex officio head, DOF secretary, DBM secretary, DOTC secretary. Remaining 3 members shall come from private sectors, transport and motorist organizations. The need to revisit the function of the road board is highly necessary, not just because it has become obsolete over time, but it has been a source of graft and corruption, Mr. President, in the government. Mr. President, the primary issue against the road board is the illegal utilization of road users tax as revealed in past Commission on Audit reports. Past COA reports exposed the illegal utilization of road users tax or the collection from the motor vehicle users charge. The MBUC collection from 2001 and 2014 was estimated at 112.5 billion. However, this figure that should have been fully enjoyed by the taxpayers indeed up being allocated elsewhere. This is a big anomaly, Mr. President. For instance, COA reported that between 2004 and 2008, the road fund was used for payment of salaries, allowance, maintenance, and other operating expenses of the board. This happened despite the fact that such expense was already chargeable to the regular budget. Thus, a total of 515.5 million pesos was unlawfully spent by the board. Furthermore, a discrepancy amounting to 1.495 billion pesos was noted by the COA from the total collection of road users tax in 2001 up to 2010. Such report was backed up by respective certifications of the Land Transportation Office and the Bureau of Treasury. In 2011, COA reported that 62.52 million fund of the road board earmarked for road maintenance and repair was instead used for its engineering and administrative overhead expenses. COA also reported that there were irregularities in the board's expenditure of more than 1.66 billion pesos in 2013. While in 2015, fund transfers to various national government agencies and local government units, amounting to more than 1 billion remain unliquidated. Moreover, only 80.34% or 11.5 billion out of 14.5 billion total allotments from the MBUC fund was obligated. Thus, an allotment of 2.8 billion for road safety, road repair, and maintenance and vehicle pollution control have expired. On top of this, only 127 out of 520 MBUC projects program for implementation in 2015 were completed. These reports clearly indicate that road board is just another layer of bureaucracy. Sadly, Mr. President, the road board became a source of corruption. Mr. President, this humble representation strongly supports the call for the abolition of the road board. When approved, the proposal will affect the manner in which the collection of monies from all motor vehicle owners and its distribution will be carried out. With this, Senate President Pimentel, Senator Subiri, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Ejercito, and I filed Senate Bill number 1620, an act abolishing the road board and transferring its powers and functions, including the management of the MBUC funds, to the DPWH and DOTR, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 8794. Mr. President, it is high time to abolish the road board to further right-size the government and appropriate the agencies' funds directly to the implementing agencies, the DPWH and the DOTR, to best deliver the services to which the road users tax is rightfully allocated as prescribed by the law. Pursuant to the one fund doctrine, all funds collected under the existing law shall be deposited to special trust accounts in the National Treasury. The funds will remain created for special purposes and will be allocated for such a principle, but without the participation of the actual board. Collected revenues, both the motor vehicles users charge and the overloading penalty, shall remain deposited into 4 trust accounts that will be directly under the management and disposal of the DPWH and DOTR. The Special Roads Support Fund, the Special Local Road Fund, and the Special Road Safety Fund will be under the DPWH, while the Special Vehicle Pollution Control Fund will be under the DOTR. One major difference between the old law and this proposed legislation is the distribution of collected funds into these special trust accounts. We deem it proper to highlight the need to support local and city roads. So instead of allocating 80% of our collected revenues to national roads only, we trim it down to 50% and increase the allotment for provincial and city roads. Through this, we can guarantee that every motor vehicle owner who is burdened by this user's charge will benefit regardless of where they be in the country. In order to ensure that the funds are appropriately allocated and used for their purpose, the MBUC shall be managed with full transparency and full public disclosure. The DPWH and DOTR shall make available all records of how the funds are utilized and disbursed in accordance with existing laws. Pre-audit and post-audit rules for the prevention, improper application, and disallowance of illegal, irregular, extravagant, excessive, unconscionable, or unnecessary use of the MBUC funds shall be promulgated. With this proposed bill, the Secretary of the DPWH shall prepare the implementing rules and regulations pertaining to the Special Road Support Fund, the Special Local Road Fund, and the Special Road Safety Fund. The Secretary of the DOTR shall prepare implementing rules and regulations pertaining to the collection of the MBUC stated under Section 3 of this Act and on the disposition of monies accruing to the Special Vehicle Pollution Control Fund. These rules regulations shall be promulgated within 30 days from the effectivity of this Act. A clear set of criteria shall be promulgated by the DPWH and DOTR. Apart from preparing the implementing rules and regulations as well as the criteria for fund allocation, they shall likewise develop judicial guidelines and documentary requirements for the availment of the fund allocation, a report of which shall be submitted to Congress annually. We want to make it clear that under Senate Bill number 1620, all existing personnel of the Road Board Secretariat will be absorbed by the DPWH. Secretaries of the DPWH and DOTR shall prohibited from creating another secretariat and may only be assisted with minimal member of staff in the administration and implementation of the fund. Mr. President, with all these things that I have presented, it is high time for us to act on Senate Bill number 1620. Daghang salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Pacquiao.
Mr. President, Senator Gatchalian would like to insert into the records his co-sponsorship speech on Senate Bill 1620.
So noted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Villanueva.
Senator Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Thank you, Mr. President. We just like to put on record that this representation wanted to associate himself with the statements and speech made by our distinguished colleague. In fact, I was present during the hearings, and I totally agree with the observations made by the committee chair as well as our colleagues, especially my seatmates. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to suspend consideration of Senate Bill 1620 for our colleagues to be able to study the proposed measure.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. The chair of the Committee on Foreign Relations will sponsor 3 resolutions on the ratification of treaties, similar to what we have done before previously, Mr. President. Senator Legarda will deliver an omnibus sponsorship on the measures. However, for purposes of interpellation and its passage on second and third readings, we will be taking it up one at a time. So I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Drilon is recognized.
Just a parliamentary inquiry. We confirm our practice here that we can allow a joint sponsorship speech, but my assumption has always been, Mr. President, that they cover the same subject, only that it involves different countries. For example, if the treaties would involve agreement on social security, even if there are several treaties on social security, we can have one sponsorship speech. However, Mr. President, I raise the question, there is the third treaty here being proposed is a resolution concurring in the ratification of the framework agreement on partnership and cooperation. We would want to know for the record whether or not this is also on a matter of social security, so that we can justify a joint sponsorship speech in accordance with our tradition and practice.
Majority Leader.
Perhaps we can ask the chairman of the Committee on Foreign Relations to take note of the manifestation of the minority leader, and therefore we could probably consider the sponsorship speech for the 2 Senate resolutions, and thereafter another sponsorship speech for the other, the third resolution, Mr. President.
So,
ibig sabihin omnibus, but when you read it, okay, just let me deliver it.
All right, so noted, Mr. President. And therefore, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders the following resolutions. Senate Resolution 570 under Committee Report 193. Senate Resolution 571 under Committee Report 194. Senate Resolution 572 under Committee Report 195.
any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, I move to consider Senate Resolutions 570, 571, and 572.
Any objection? Hearing none, the three said measures are under consideration.
We ask Secretary to read the title of the measures, Mr. President.
Secretary, please do so.
Senate Resolution Number 570. Resolution concurring in the ratification of the Framework Agreement on Partnership and Cooperation between the European Union as its member states of the one part and the Republic of the Philippines of the other part. Senator Loren Legarda. Senate Resolution Number 571. Resolution concurring in the ratification of the agreement between the Republic of the Philippines and the Federal Republic of Germany on Social Security, Senator Loren Legarda. Senate Resolution Number 572, Resolution concurring in the ratification of the agreement on social security between the Republic of the Philippines and the Kingdom of Sweden, Senator Loren Legarda.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measures, we will ask the chairman of the Committee on Relations be recognized and perhaps may respond also to the parliamentary inquiry made by the Minority Leader, Mr. President, Senator Drilon.
Yes.
Senator Lauren Legarda, Mr.
Senator
President.
Legarda is recognized.
Thank you. That's the Committee on Foreign Relations. Thank you. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I have the honor to seek approval of 3 treaties, namely Senate Resolution number 570 under Committee Report 193, resolution concurring in the ratification of the Framework Agreement on Partnership and Cooperation between the European Union and its member states of one part and the Republic of the Philippines of the other part. Senate Resolution 571 under Committee Report number 194, resolution concurring in the ratification of the agreement between the Republic of the Philippines and the Federal Republic of Germany on Social Security. And Senate Resolution number 572 under Committee Report 195, resolution concurring in the ratification of the agreement on Social Security between the Republic of the Philippines and the Kingdom of Sweden. First, Philippine-EU Partnership and Cooperation Agreement. It has always been in the interest of our country to establish and fortify formal relations with international partners that will protect and improve the welfare of Filipinos here and abroad. Our August Chamber has never been remiss in initiating and supporting efforts to achieve this goal. The Philippines and the EU have long established diplomatic relations since 1964, and this partnership has matured and evolved over the years. The EU remains to be a robust economic partner of the Philippines. In 2016, our country was ranked as the EU's 4th largest trading partner, 4th export market, the 5th import supplier. For the first half of 2017, total Philippine merchandise exports amounting to 4.38 billion euros comprised 14.9% of overall exports to the EU, which made the EU our 2nd largest export partner during this period. Moreover, foreign direct investments, or FDIs, from the 28 EU member states represent the largest FDIs in our country, supporting over 500,000 Filipino jobs. The EU also continues to prove to be a committed development partner. As of June 2017, the EU ranks 4th among sources of grants from Official Development Assistance, ODA, and 8th among the combined sources of loans and grants of ODA. The EU's total ongoing ODA portfolio to the Philippines amounts to 190.48 million euro, comprising of 10 grants. The EU is also a major contributor to the Mindanao Trust Fund, a multi-donor grant facility that consolidates international development assistance for the recovery of conflict-affected communities in Mindanao, and a committed member of the international monitoring team in our peacekeeping efforts of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. In addition, the EU is home to an estimated 700,000 to 800,000 of our kababayans. The largest Filipino communities are in Italy, the United Kingdom, and Greece. The EU is the 3rd largest source of remittances from overseas Filipinos and is the 5th largest source of tourists in the Philippines. The legal basis of our ties with the EU is still a 37-year-old agreement that does not truly reflect this dynamic partnership. It is time we bring this relationship up to date through the PCA. The agreement commits the Philippines and the European Union and its member states to pursue dialogue in 41 areas of cooperation, which include combating terrorism, human trafficking, and illicit drugs, countering the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, small arms, and light weapons, protecting human rights, encouraging environmental sustainability, reducing the impact of climate change, promoting development cooperation and capacity building and technical cooperation initiatives, exchange of experts in the areas of science, technology, statistics, food, and drugs. The PCA will also bolster our status as a beneficiary country under the EU's generalized scheme of Preference Plus and provide basis for concluding a free trade agreement with the EU. The prospective FTA aims to enhance market access for goods, services, and investments for the two sides, thereby ensuring benefits for micro, small, and medium enterprises, which comprise 99.5% of total businesses and employ 61.6% of the total workforce in the country. The PCA allows both parties to address issues and challenges in a more coherent, efficient, and sustainable manner. It provides an overarching mechanism for formal and regular dialogue between the Philippines and the EU. Without the PCA, what we currently have is an ad hoc dialogue in the form of the Philippine-EU Senior Officials Meeting, SOM, and its working groups, which do not meet regularly. Issues of concern to either the Philippines or EU are only discussed in a compartmentalized manner. Through the PCA, discussions on these issues would take place in an institutionalized mechanism which will ensure greater coordination between the Philippines and EU. In cases of dispute on any of the issues covered by the agreement, the PCA provides that both parties shall resort to dialogue through the Joint Committee with a view of seeking a mutually acceptable solution. The entry into force of the framework agreement will not necessitate the introduction of any new legislation, as it does not create any new legal commitments, and the language is expressed in general terminologies. Upon the PCA's entry into force, a joint committee composed of the Philippines and EU senior officials will be established. The joint committee will set out the priorities within the framework of cooperation, provide recommendations for promoting the objectives of the agreement, monitor and oversee the proper functioning of the agreement. Each party may refer to the joint committee for any divergence with the application or interpretation of the PCA. Given the current realities of our bilateral relations with the EU, the Framework Agreement on Partnership and Cooperation will serve as a solid platform for dialogue to explore ways to achieve our shared goal of a stronger partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and equality. I thus seek the Senate's concurrence in the ratification of this agreement. Now let me go to the social security agreements. The Philippines has also entered into social security agreements with several countries, especially those that host a sizable number of Filipinos, not only to protect the interest of our kababayans, but also as a way to boost our diplomatic relations with other countries. Since the early 1980s, the Philippine government has undertaken negotiations on social security agreements. Among the countries that have signed the Convention on Social Security with the Philippines are Austria, United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, Spain, France, Canada, Quebec, Switzerland, and Belgium. Now we seek to also approve our social security agreements with Germany and Sweden. Overseas Filipinos play an important role in sustaining the strength of the Philippine economy. Many of the countries where our countrymen live and work do not have social safety nets for foreign nationals, thus leaving them in a precarious situation should the need for such safety nets arise. On the other hand, Filipinos who migrate to countries that have coverage for foreign nationals are unable to accumulate enough insurance periods to qualify for full social security pensions because they do not meet the minimum requirement for coverage. Furthermore, without a social security agreement between the Philippines and the host country, many employers risk the payment of double contributions or dual coverage when sending a worker on a temporary basis to the other country. Germany is host to more than 21,000 Filipinos. It is also a strong and strategic partner of the Philippines. It ranks as the 11th major trading partner of the Philippines worldwide. In 2016, overall trade between the Philippines and Germany amounted to $4.192 billion, and the balance of trade was in favor of the Philippines, $394.503 million. New German investments, in particular in the IT-based service sector, are growing. German companies see the Philippines as a future market in the maritime, transport, and industrial manufacturing sectors. In 2016, investment promotion agencies approved German investments in the Philippines amounted to 4.9 billion pesos. With the exchange of notes between the Philippines and Germany on the German-Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry on September 23, 2015, officially admitting the same as part of the German chamber network, German nationals are expected to invest and relocate to the Philippines. Thus, the Philippines-Germany Social Security Agreement, which was signed by both parties on September 19, 2014 in Berlin, is seen as beneficial to both countries as it will provide greater impetus towards the promotion of the Philippines as a retirement haven for qualified German pensioners under the Philippine Retirement Act, and will also ensure that Filipinos living and working in Germany are covered with social security benefits. Meanwhile, among the Nordic countries, Sweden is our largest trading partner and the 9th largest among the European Union member states. Bilateral trade between the Philippines and Sweden in 2016 amounted to $134.29 million, slightly down from $143.40 million total trade registered. Despite the downturn in trade, Sweden remains confident in the Philippines given our consistent, strong economic performance. Many Swedish companies have also established presence in the Philippines. A most solid illustration of Sweden's confidence in the Philippine economy is the visit to Manila in November 2016 of a 70-member Swedish business delegation headed by Swedish Minister for Enterprise and Innovation, Michael Damberg, who also presided over the reopening of the Swedish Embassy in Manila. The Philippines-Sweden Social Security Agreement was signed in Stockholm on October 2015. Both the Social Security Agreements with Germany and Sweden contain standard provisions consistent with the International Labor Organization Convention ILO 118 on the equality of treatment and ILO Convention 157 on the maintenance of social security rights. These agreements aim to contribute to equality of treatment, allow the portability of benefits to overseas Filipinos and nationals of the host country, and improve the processing of claims while eliminating dual coverage, among others. Mr. President, we must pursue initiatives that will help uplift the lives of our overseas workers and help secure their retirement in the twilight years. It is thus my hope that the Senate concurs in the ratification of the Social Security Agreements with Germany and Sweden, as we actively pursue similar social security agreements with other countries that have compatible social security schemes with the Philippines and home to most number of Filipino workers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Legarda. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Risa Ontiveros will co-sponsor PS Resolution 571 and PS Resolution 572. May we recognize Senator Ontiveros?
Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, I'd like to express my intent to co-sponsor Senate Resolution 571 or Committee Report 194 and Senate Resolution 572, Committee Report 195, shepherded to plenary through the tireless efforts of the Chair of the Committee on Foreign Relations, Senator Loren Legarda. My explanation is brief, Mr. President. We are a nation of overseas Filipino workers. There are around 2.2 million Filipinos working abroad as of 2016, and contract workers comprise 97.5% of the total. Madami po sa ating mga kababayan ang nagtatrabaho abroad na walang kasiguruhan sa kanilang pensyon o social security. The least we can do for our countrymen and women is to ensure that they will be covered both in the Philippines and in their state of employ. This is in compliance with International Labor Organization Conventions number 118 and 157 on the maintenance of rights in social security. I look forward to the day that we can enter into similar bilateral agreements with all other countries that host our Filipino workers, such as countries in the Middle East. We owe our OFWs this much. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ontiveros.
Senator Richard Gordon, Mr. President.
Senator Richard Gordon is now recognized.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to associate myself with this bill, with this proposal to ratify the agreement. principally because I am authoring the SSS law. I'm sponsoring it in about a couple of weeks. And one of the principal provisions of the SSS is to try and encourage the Department of Foreign Affairs, as well as the Department of Labor, to continue trying to make an effort so that all our OFWs will eventually be covered by Social Security insurance, Mr. President. And I think it is very, very noteworthy that it's very, and timely as well, that we have a Social Security agreement now with Germany, which is one of the most robust country in the world in terms of economic development, and is a leading light in terms of human rights and in terms of its attention towards the benefit of labor, and in particular and in general the citizens of not only their own country but other countries as well. And so by saying that, Mr. President, I'm enlightened and I'm enthused by the fact that the good Senator, Senator Legarda, has sponsored the ratification of the resolution, and I would be proud to co-sponsor this, and that is my presentation, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. And if I may add, Mr. Majority Leader, just to put on record that this representation, the acting presiding officer would like to associate himself to the statements and speech made by our distinguished colleague. I was actually present in 2014 in Berlin during the signing of the Memorandum of Agreement, especially with the Memorandum of Cooperation on Technical Education and Skills Development programs. Thank you.
Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Legarda.
Thank you. I would like to thank the presiding officer and Senator Ontiveros and Senator Gordon for associating yourselves and lending your support to the three agreements, which I believe will only redound to the betterment of the Filipino in the Philippines and abroad. And I'll be ready to answer any question tomorrow, and hopefully would seek the cooperation and support of our colleagues for the concurrence in the ratification. Just for the record, this was the PCA was signed a year ago, and the others were signed, as you said, in 2014 yet. Yes. So as we speak, when there is no bilateral agreement on Social Security, the Filipinos living in those countries do not reap the benefits. And insofar as the PCA is concerned, we are there's an ad hoc committee that's not taking care of all the issues that I mentioned earlier on the cooperation agreement. So we only stand to gain and nothing to lose, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Legarda. Mr. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, to give time to the other senators to study the proposed measure, I move to suspend consideration of the three Senate resolutions, and we'll schedule it tomorrow for any possible interpolations or passage on second reading. The only reason that we could not pass it today is because of the tradition in the Senate that we never pass a measure unless it is a simple resolution on the same day when it is read. The only time that we did that before was when the Congress was about to terminate or to adjourn, and that is the reason that we had to go after the 3-day rule. But nevertheless, at this point, and they were local bills. Mr. President, I move to suspend the resolutions 570, 571, 572.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. The motion is carried.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Motion is carried.
Additional reference of business. Peace resolution number 582. A resolution commending and congratulating the regional awardees of the 10 outstanding students of the Philippines. Senator Paulo Benigno Bam Aquino IV.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
583, a resolution directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the provisions of the portability law and its guidelines for implementation. Senator Paulo Benigno Bam Aquino IV.
Referred to the Committees on Government Corporations and Public Enterprises and Labor, Employment and Human Resources Development.
584, resolution directing the Committee on National Defense and Security and the Congressional Oversight Committee on the Armed Forces of the Philippines Modernization Act to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the status of the AEP modernization program, particularly the acquisition of 2 Philippine Navy frigates, introduced by Senators Pangilinan, Drilon, Trillanes IV, Aquino IV, Ontiveros, and De Lima.
Referred to the Committee on National Defense and Security. Mr. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Loren Legarda would like to be made co-author of PS Resolution 580, or the resolution calling for the consideration or the constitution of the Senate into a constituent assembly.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Motion's carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, I move that Senate Bill 1608 and 1646 on the Bangsamoro Basic Law Bills be secondarily referred to the Committee on Finance.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Motion of the Majority Leader is carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we elect Senator Grace Poe as member of the Commission on Appointments effective February 1, 2018, in lieu of the Majority Leader, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The motion is carried.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the Majority Leader as member of the Senate Electoral Tribunal as of February 1, 2018, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, January 17, 2018.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, January 17, 2018.